Hi guys, it's Amy. Thank you so much for watching. My channel is Strength Reversed. I have a day off of work today and my goal was to do absolutely nothing. And so far, I'm totally achieving that. So check that off the list. Check. I wasn't going to record another video until next week, but then I saw Sparkle Divine's The Card That's Scarred. And I loved her video. I thought it was hilarious. I know she didn't find the situation funny, but she did find the humor in it, which I appreciate. And I also appreciate her editing skills, which you won't see here, okay? But I wasn't going to do this because I don't generally like to share like my personal spiritual practices, but I'm going to do that too. So I'm just going to do a bunch of shit I never really do. So I do have a card that scarred me. It was kind of a whole deck, but particularly one card. And this goes back to probably 03, 04. I was diagnosed with an eye problem. And my whole life, one of my greatest fears, like irrational fears, was going blind. So I don't know what that's about. But the problem only affects one of my eyes, thank God. And when I was first diagnosed, I was freaking out. Like freaking out. I'm sure I went into therapy, which, I think when you're born, you should just be assigned a therapist that you can discharge to continually. But I was like, I demanded drugs, like Xanax me up. I just had to get through the terror of this diagnosis, and it has affected the sight in one of my eyes. So as I was dealing with this, I really turned inward and had to get through the initial, like, my Catholic voice that said you did something wrong, and my, the New Age fundamentalists, like, you created this situation. And once I got through that, my first initial reaction was try to avoid it. So, God, what do I have to do to get out of this? But then after a while, I just mostly turned inside to find ways to deal with this. And so a lot of that involved spiritual work, a lot of meditation kind of stuff and things like that. So here I am meditating. I am someone who has like a committee of, I guess I call them guides. I know this sounds like woo-woo and out there, and I think I'm less woo-woo than a lot of people, but Michael, you don't need to watch this. Michael's my boyfriend. He's a saint. He puts up with so much of my bullshit, but he's not into any of this, but he thinks my videos are genius. So anyway, I'm getting down to like the depths of my soul, and trying to find meaning in all of this suffering. And I went home to visit, and I booked a reading with a reader that I always see when I'm visiting my parents. And I think she's phenomenal, and I really trust her. And so she had a bunch of decks out and said, okay, pick a deck. And so, of course, I picked the Haindl Tarot because I was like, I have an eye question. And I didn't ask her about medical stuff. It was just, dealing with this on other levels. And so she laid out the spread in the shape of an eye, and she put like in the middle a card, and she said, this is your retina. So she's going through the reading, and she's like, there's this one card that has this big eye over it. And when she got to the card in the middle, she flipped it over, and she's like, oh, this is her. And so she flipped over this card. And I had this amazing experience with this deck, and I thought it was so beautiful. And, then that card. And of course, I thought, I have to get this deck. So, I don't know if we were Amazoning and 2004, but somehow I bought this deck and it arrived at my house. In the meantime, though, I had done, a meditation or something, and I regularly communicate with my guides, whatever you think those are, if they're outside of us or a part of us, or, certain aspect of our own self. I don't know. I don't really care. But in this one meditation, someone or something came forward and scared the shit out of me. I was terrified of, and it wasn't like a negative thing, it was an intensity. And I kind of thought, I would go away. And it stuck with me, like when you watch a horror movie that totally freaks you out. For me, anything that's a true story. I can't watch The Exorcism of so-and-so or The Possession of such and such. The Mothman prophecies terrified me for weeks. It just stuck with me in my normal life. I had a shower curtain that had a bunch of butterflies on it. That was immediately discarded. I was afraid to answer the phone because I thought that voice would come up. Anyway, it was that kind of thing where I was scared to sleep at night. It was just overwhelming. And so anyway, I get this deck and I'm all excited and I'm looking through this deck and it didn't have the same feeling as my experience having this reading. The deck seemed really dark. It seemed like heavy. It was like, I wasn't really feeling it. So I'm looking through, and I come to the King of Swords, and I pull out this card, and I was like, holy shit, that's him. That's who I saw. And I know the whole Eye of Ra thing, the connection. But I saw this card, and I immediately had a panic attack and broke out into a cold sweat. And I think I spoke to someone about this card, and they said, you can tell your guides to back off. Like, you can say, here's the kind of relationship I want with you, and it needs to be gentle. And so I did, and he kind of ghosted me and went away, and he's still like rattling around back there, but hasn't really. He was like, yeah, okay, forget you then. So this card is the card that scarred me, and there's still a little bit of a charge when I look at it. This deck stays in this wooden box. I did not get rid of the deck. I feel like I want it, but whenever I put this card away, I tuck it into the middle of the deck. I don't want it on either end. It freaks me out. I have not worked with this deck. I have not, studied this deck. I ain't interested. It just stays away because I had such a visceral response to this. So that is the card that scarred me. I'm totally like scarred to the depths of my psyche. It's like wrapped up in past life. It's like hardcore. So scarred for life. Yeah. It's going away now. Okay. Thanks for watching, guys.